I'm an MC for burlesque shows. Yeah? Has anybody ever been to a burlesque? The person laughing up front has been to a burlesque show. Anybody been to a burlesque show before? Huh? The folks who have never been to a burlesque show, I see you. You didn't applaud because you don't know what that is, and it makes you feel weird. I have a burlesque show next week. It's called Get You a Babe Who Can Do Both. We do TEDx-style talks and striptease. All right? So if you're here tonight and you're thinking, something's missing from this formula. Wednesday, December 11th, all right? But I say that all to say is that I'm comfortable generally in front of the microphone, but I'm nervous to tell this story. I didn't practice this. I didn't expect to do this. So, in 2016, I became a kidney donor. Applause. It actually makes me feel so weird to talk about this, and that's why I don't generally give this talk very much. I don't like to center myself when I have this kind of conversation, although I do think it's a very important thing that more people ought to consider, and all people can do. You don't have to be an important person to do this thing. But in 2016, I became a kidney donor. I gave my kidney to a very close friend of mine. His name is Octavius A. Newman. And Octavius and I met when we worked at the Apple Store on 17th and Walnut, way, way, way back. If I sold you something you don't need, you're welcome. We became really close friends. We talked all the time. We talked so much that we started a podcast, as is our God-given right. And one day, as we were getting ready to start our podcast, we were going to record together. Octavius told me that he had some news. And he told me that he's been going through some stuff. I could tell. We podcast all the time. I could tell something was up. His energy was low. He told me he had stage 4 kidney disease. And I didn't know how many stages of kidney disease there are. I did not know what a kidney does. I had not really thought about these things, taken this stuff for granted. Through a lot of conversation, through finding out what kidneys do, and finding out how I can help, and finding out how I have the blood type he needs, we went through a series of tests. We became cross-matched, as it were. And October 11th, 2016, I gave him my kidney. To date, I think it's our best collaboration we've ever been a part of. And what's interesting is when you go through the process, they tell you you've got to go through a lot of tests. Cross-matching is when you find out that all of your, not just your blood, your cells, everything matches up. And something interesting between Octavius and I is Octavius is a black man, he's in his 40s, he's married, he's a devout Christian. I am none of those things. And so when we found out, well, we're cross-matched, we're a pair, it felt like something special, something that we did not know immediately. You go through a lot of tests. You go through CT scan, you go through psychiatric tests, you go through a battery of examinations. But what one I was not ready for was telling your family. Because when I told my family that I was going to become a kidney donor, and they asked, who for? I had to tell them it was for someone they've never met. They didn't know this person. And suddenly there was a lot of conversations about what I was losing and for whom. I love my family. They're wonderful. But understandable. If somebody close to you told you they were doing something big that you know takesies backsies, they start wondering, well, what happens if your brother needs a kidney? Well, what happens if family needs? What happens? What happens? What happens? And I had a really difficult time having a conversation with my family about this, not because they didn't understand Octavius or the decision, but I had this inflection moment that I never realized we needed to have, which is I finally understood they didn't know who I am anymore. Because as you get older, you grow apart. You go different places. Your career takes you into different spots. You become a different person. It's natural. It just happens. And rare is the occasion when you have to sit back and examine that and tell your family, I'm doing an important thing for a person you don't know. You don't really know who I am. We had a long conversation. It was hard. We cried a lot. they didn't really get how I could come to this consensus for a person that hadn't been entered into our family. It makes sense. I get it. But it's still hard to have that conversation. At the end of the conversation, they understood me a little bit better. I had the opportunity to present myself as I was 8 years ago, a different man than the person that they knew when they were raising me. And we weren't talking about loss anymore. Because at the end of that conversation, and after October 11th, 2016, Octavius became a part of our family. And I became a part of his. And so when we talk about what I did, what I gave, what I lost, I think about what I gained. That's my story.